Hello, welcome back to the BTG channel. Today we will learn about the explosive drama unfolding in Livingston this Thursday, November 20th, where betrayals run deep, family bonds shatter, and desperate measures are taken to save a life. The Richardson family finds itself at the center of a devastating conflict, while the Hawthorns navigate treacherous marital waters that threaten to expose long-buried secrets. Katherine Richardson is about to experience one of the most painful moments of her life as she discovers that her own brother, Martin Richardson, has chosen to stand against her in a bitter family feud. The sense of betrayal cuts deeper than any argument or disagreement ever could, especially when it involves the person who is supposed to have your back no matter what. Kat has always relied on Martin as her ally within the Richardson family, but recent events have shown her that loyalty can be a fragile thing, easily broken when perspectives clash and old resentments resurface. The tension between Kat and her half-sister Eva Thomas has been building for quite some time, fueled by years of complicated family dynamics and unresolved feelings about their shared connection through Leslie Thomas. The two women have never enjoyed a warm relationship, and the animosity between them has only intensified as they've grown older. What makes the current situation even more devastating for Kat is that Martin appears to be siding with Eva in their ongoing conflict, a decision that feels like the ultimate act of disloyalty from someone she considered her closest confidant within the family structure. Meanwhile, across town, Naomi Hawthorne finds herself in an equally uncomfortable position as she attempts to navigate a delicate conversation with Hayley Hamilton. On the surface, Naomi's apology to Hayley seems genuine and heartfelt, but the real motivation behind this sudden display of remorse is far more calculated than it appears. Naomi is actually trying to deflect attention away from her own crumbling marriage to Jacob Hawthorne, and she knows that her father Bill Hamilton has started to notice the cracks in their relationship. By reaching out to Hayley and making amends for past transgressions, Naomi hopes to create a distraction that will prevent her father from asking too many probing questions about what's really going on between her and Jacob. The truth is that Naomi and Jacob are facing serious marital problems that stem from a fundamental disagreement about their future together. While Jacob desperately wants to start a family and have children, Naomi has very different plans for her life and isn't ready to embrace motherhood. This incompatibility has created a widening gulf between them, and both partners are beginning to realize that they may want fundamentally different things from their marriage. Naomi dreads the inevitable conversation with her father about these issues, knowing that Bill will have strong opinions about how she should handle her relationship with Jacob. In another corner of Livingston, Ted Richardson is facing a medical and ethical dilemma that could test the very limits of his professional abilities and personal conscience. Leslie Thomas has come to Ted with a desperate plea to help her adoptive mother Peaches, who is running out of time as her health continues to deteriorate. Leslie has begged Ted to consider experimental life-extending treatments that might give Peaches a few more precious months or even years, but the request puts Ted in an incredibly difficult position. As a plastic surgeon, Ted's expertise lies in cosmetic and reconstructive procedures, not experimental medical treatments that could potentially prolong someone's life. During their conversation on November 19th, Ted tried to explain this limitation to Leslie, emphasizing that the kind of experimentation she's asking for requires extensive time, specialized knowledge, and resources that he simply doesn't possess. More importantly, Peaches doesn't have the luxury of time on her side, which makes any experimental approach even more risky and unlikely to succeed. However, Leslie's emotional appeal has clearly affected Ted, and he appears willing to at least attempt something to help the woman who raised Leslie and means so much to her. The upcoming episode on November 20th will show Ted taking some kind of action on Peaches' behalf, though it remains to be seen exactly what approach he'll take and whether his efforts will make any meaningful difference in her condition. Ted is clearly moved by Leslie's desperation and wants to help in any way he can, even if it means stepping outside his usual area of expertise and potentially taking risks that could have serious consequences. However, Ted's growing involvement in this complicated situation hasn't gone unnoticed by others at the hospital. Shanice Johnson, who serves as the head nurse and has built an impeccable reputation for her professionalism and competence, will issue a warning to Leslie in Thursday's episode. Shanice has observed the increasingly tense dynamics surrounding Ted and Leslie, and she's concerned about where this situation might be heading. The relationship between Shanice and Leslie has already been strained by recent events, particularly an incident that occurred just days ago when Leslie had an emotional outburst at the hospital. During that confrontation, Leslie made some pointed accusations against Shanice that left the experienced nurse feeling confused and unfairly attacked. The real source of Leslie's hostility towards Shanice isn't difficult to identify for those who have been paying attention. When Shanice first arrived at the hospital, Leslie noticed that the attractive nurse seemed to be flirting with Ted, and jealousy immediately took root in Leslie's heart. She views Shanice as a potential romantic threat, someone who could potentially capture Ted's attention and affection if given the opportunity. The question now is whether the feud between these two women will continue to escalate, or if Leslie will find the maturity to step back and recognize that her jealousy is unfounded. Shanice has done nothing wrong and doesn't deserve to be treated as an enemy simply because Leslie feels insecure about her relationship with Ted. Thursday's episode will reveal whether these two strong-willed women can find a way to coexist peacefully, or if their conflict will continue to create tension and drama at the hospital. The most explosive confrontation of Thursday's episode will undoubtedly be the showdown between Kat Richardson and her brother Martin, with Eva Thomas caught in the middle of their bitter dispute. The seeds of this conflict were planted during Tuesday's episode when Martin was supposed to meet Kat for what he described as a nice talk at Uptown, one of Livingston's popular dining establishments. However, plans changed when Martin ended up having lunch with Eva instead, while he waited for his sister to arrive. Martin and Eva are siblings who don't get to spend much time together, so Eva decided it would be nice to catch up with her brother over a meal. They settled into their booth and began chatting about various topics, including their thoughts and observations about Kat. What neither of them realized was that Kat had actually arrived at the restaurant and was sitting in the very next booth, positioned perfectly to overhear every word of their conversation. As Kat listened in silence, she heard Martin and Eva discussing her in less than flattering terms. While the conversation wasn't entirely vicious or cruel, certain comments cut deep, particularly when Martin told Eva that Kat has been spoiled and pampered throughout her entire life. For Kat, who has always struggled with her identity within the Richardson family and her complicated relationships with her siblings, hearing Martin express this opinion to Eva felt like a devastating betrayal. The fact that Eva, someone Kat already has a contentious relationship with, was hearing these criticisms from Martin only made the situation more painful and humiliating. Unable to contain her anger and hurt, Kat decided to confront Eva immediately after she believed Martin had left the restaurant. The confrontation quickly turned ugly as Kat unleashed years of pent-up resentment toward her half-sister. In a moment of shocking cruelty, Kat essentially told Eva that she wished Leslie had chosen to have an abortion years ago so that Eva would never have been born. It was an incredibly harsh and deeply personal attack that revealed just how much anger and bitterness Kat harbors toward Eva. What Kat didn't realize was that Martin hadn't actually left the restaurant yet. He witnessed the tail end of Kat's vicious comments to Eva, and Wednesday's episode concluded with Martin stepping back into the situation after hearing his sister say such terrible things to Eva. This sets up Thursday's episode for an intense confrontation between Kat and Martin, where the siblings will finally have it out about their true feelings and loyalties. According to spoilers, Martin will definitively pick a side in the ongoing feud between Kat and Eva during Thursday's episode. Given Kat's recent behavior and the cruel words she directed at Eva, it seems almost certain that Martin will choose to stand with Eva rather than supporting his full-blooded sister. This decision will leave Kat feeling isolated and betrayed by someone she thought would always be in her corner, regardless of the circumstances. Over at the Hamilton household, complicated family dynamics are also playing out as Bill Hamilton tries to understand what's really happening in his daughter Naomi's marriage to Jacob Hawthorne. Jacob recently spoke with Bill about what he described as Hayley's lie, specifically mentioning a birth control prescription that Naomi discovered on Hayley's phone. Since Bill and Hayley are actively trying to conceive a child together, the appearance of a birth control prescription naturally raised major red flags for Naomi, who shared her concerns with Jacob. What Bill doesn't know is that Hayley is engaged in a sinister plot to poison him, and the birth control prescription is part of a larger web of deception she's weaving. When confronted about the prescription, Hayley demonstrated quick thinking and managed to craft a plausible excuse. She told Bill that she was using the birth control medication to help regulate and adjust her hormones, claiming this would increase their chances of successfully conceiving and carrying a child to term. Bill accepted this explanation without too much skepticism, though the incident has clearly planted some seeds of doubt in his mind. During his conversation with Jacob about Hayley's supposed lie, Bill made an interesting observation. He pointed out that he's noticed significant tension in Jacob and Naomi's marriage lately, effectively turning the tables on his son-in-law by suggesting that Jacob isn't in any position to judge others' relationships when his own marriage is clearly struggling. It was a diplomatic but pointed comment that reminded Jacob to focus on his own problems before worrying too much about Bill's relationship with Hayley. In Thursday's episode, Bill will directly confront Naomi about the ongoing issues in her marriage to Jacob. This conversation has the potential to expose the fundamental problem at the heart of their relationship. Naomi doesn't want to have children, while Jacob is desperate to become a father. Will Naomi finally be honest with her father about this incompatibility? Or will she continue to keep her true feelings hidden and hope that somehow she and Jacob can find a way to reconcile their different visions for the future? The answer to this question could determine whether Naomi and Jacob's marriage has any chance of survival, or if they're headed toward an inevitable separation.